The U.S. tourism industry is collapsing, and it's not just foreigners staying away. Americans are packing their bags and leaving the country in record numbers. What's driving this exodus? Stay tuned because the truth might shock you. Times Square, once a dazzling spectacle of lights and humanity, a place where dreams were made and stories were told, now echoes with an unsettling quiet. The neon lights still flicker, but they illuminate empty streets and vacant sidewalks. Gone are the throngs of eager tourists, the street performers, and the bustling energy that once defined this iconic location. Replaced by a smattering of locals rushing through the desolate landscape, their faces marked by a sense of urgency and unease. This is not the America we once knew. The vibrant, bustling streets have given way to an eerie stillness. This is America facing a tourism crisis, a crisis that has left its mark on every corner of the nation. Across the nation, from the sunny beaches of California, where the waves now crash on empty shores, to the historic streets of Boston, where the echoes of the past now resonate in the silence, a chilling trend emerges. Empty hotels, deserted attractions, and businesses struggling to stay afloat. The tourism industry is teetering on the brink, with no clear path to recovery in sight. The numbers are stark and undeniable. They paint a grim picture of a once thriving industry now in freefall. International travel to the U.S. plummeted by a staggering 11.6% in March 2025 alone. Airports, once bustling with activity, now stand eerily quiet. Western Europe, once a reliable source of eager visitors, has turned its back, with travel advisories and cancelled trips becoming the norm. Germany in particular leads the pack in cancelled trips, reflecting a broader trend of declining interest in American destinations. Even our neighbors to the north are staying away, with travel from Canada plummeting by a jaw-dropping 31.9%. The once busy border crossings now see a trickle of visitors. The message is clear: America is no longer the world's playground. The allure of the American dream has faded. But it's not just international tourists who are staying away. Americans themselves are leaving, seeking solace and stability elsewhere, fleeing their homeland in a startling exodus. The reasons are complex: a tangled web of political turmoil, economic anxiety, and a growing sense of unease. Families are packing up, leaving behind the familiar for the unknown, driven by a desire for a better life. Political protests have become a common sight, and economic instability has left many feeling uncertain about the future. The sense of unease is palpable, a constant undercurrent in the lives of many Americans. The streets may be empty, but the weight of the crisis is felt by all. To understand this mass exodus, we need to rewind the clock. We need to go back to a time when the seeds of isolationism were first planted, a time when the world began to see the U.S. not as a beacon of hope, but as a fortress of fear. The seeds of this decline were sown years ago, during the tumultuous Trump era. It was a period marked by divisive rhetoric and policies that sought to put America first, but at what cost? The world watched as the U.S. turned inward, closing its doors to the very people who once saw it as a land of opportunity. His America First rhetoric, once a rallying cry for some, has morphed into a symbol of isolationism, a scarlet letter repelling visitors from our shores. Remember the tariffs? These were not just economic measures, they were signals to the world that the U.S. was no longer open for business. Those hastily erected economic barriers designed to protect American industries? They were meant to shield the U.S. economy but ended up isolating it. The tariffs sparked trade wars, creating a ripple effect that made the U.S. an expensive and unwelcoming destination for both businesses and tourists alike. They backfired spectacularly, sparking trade wars and making the U.S. an expensive and unwelcoming destination. The once bustling shopping malls and vibrant storefronts began to empty out, a stark reminder of the policies that had gone awry. And who can forget the infamous border wall, a physical manifestation of fear and xenophobia that sent shockwaves across the globe. This wall was not just a barrier, it was a message to the world that the U.S. was closing itself off, turning away from the very principles of freedom and openness it once championed. The message was clear: tourists not welcome, and the world listened. The once crowded tourist attractions and landmarks began to see fewer and fewer visitors. The disappointment was palpable, not just among the tourists but also among the businesses that thrived on their presence. Surveys reveal a chilling truth. Almost half of travelers from key tourism markets now view the U.S. as an unwelcoming and even hostile destination. This perception is not just a temporary setback, it is a long-term challenge that will require significant effort to overcome. The damage, it seems, is done. The broken American flag and deserted tourist spots are not just symbols, they are the reality of a nation that has turned its back on the world. The question now is, can we rebuild the bridges we've burned, or is the door truly shut for good? But it's not just politics keeping tourists at bay. The economic landscape plays a significant role too. The mighty American dollar, a symbol of strength in the past, has become an unwelcome barrier for budget-conscious travelers. When the dollar strengthens, it means that foreign currencies are weaker in comparison, making everything in the US more expensive for international visitors. As the dollar surges, prices for everything from hotels to hamburgers skyrocket, making the US a luxury few can afford. This surge affects not just luxury items but everyday expenses, turning a simple meal or a night's stay into a costly affair. Imagine you're a family of 4 from the UK, planning a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Disney World. You've saved for years, dreaming of the magical experience. What used to be an expensive but achievable dream is now an exercise in financial futility. The cost of flights, accommodation, park tickets, and even meals inside the park have all surged. The pound, weakened against the dollar, simply doesn't stretch as far. This means that every pound exchanged yields fewer dollars, reducing the overall budget for the trip. Suddenly that dream vacation morphs into a staycation closer to home. Instead of exploring the wonders of Disney World, families find themselves enjoying local parks and attractions. And it's not just the UK. Travelers from Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world are also feeling the impact. Across the globe, potential tourists are feeling the pinch. The strong dollar means that their local currency buys less, making trips to the US less appealing. The cost of flights, accommodation, and even souvenirs has become prohibitive, pushing the American dream further out of reach. For many, the idea of visiting the US becomes a distant fantasy rather than a planned holiday. But the reasons for America's tourism woes and the exodus of its own citizens run deeper than economic anxieties. A growing sense of unease, a feeling that the social fabric of the nation is fraying, is also keeping visitors away. The American dream, once a beacon of hope and opportunity, now feels tarnished, overshadowed by a toxic political climate, rising social inequality, and a healthcare system that seems designed to bankrupt rather than heal. And then there's the elephant in the room: gun violence. The United States, a nation seemingly at war with itself, suffers from an epidemic of gun violence unparalleled in the developed world. Schools, shopping malls, even places of worship have become potential targets, leaving both citizens and visitors feeling vulnerable and afraid. Imagine telling your children they can't go to a movie theater or a concert without fearing for their lives. This is the grim reality for many Americans, and it's a reality that's increasingly difficult to ignore for those considering a visit. The land of the free, it seems, has become the land of fear. It's no wonder then that Americans themselves are choosing to leave, seeking refuge in countries where basic safety and economic security are not considered luxuries but fundamental rights. They are trading the American dream for a chance at a better life, a life free from fear and financial ruin. They are leaving behind families, friends, and the only home they've ever known, not out of a lack of love for their country, but out of a desperate desire for a better future. They are the canaries in the coal mine, their departure a stark warning sign that something is deeply wrong. The consequences of this mass exodus are far-reaching, impacting not just the tourism industry but the very fabric of the American economy. When tourists stop coming and citizens flee, businesses suffer, jobs are lost, and the economy takes a nosedive. The once thriving hospitality industry, once a major employer, is now a shadow of its former self. Airlines are cutting routes, hotels stand empty, and restaurants are struggling to survive. The ripple effects are felt across the economy, from retail to transportation to entertainment. The situation is dire, but not without hope. America, a nation built on resilience and reinvention, has the capacity to change course, to reclaim its position as a beacon of hope and opportunity. But it requires a collective effort, a commitment to address the root causes of this decline. It requires acknowledging the damage done by divisive policies and working towards a more inclusive and welcoming society. It requires investing in education, healthcare, and social programs that create a more just and equitable society for all. It requires tackling the issue of gun violence head-on, enacting sensible gun control measures that prioritize the safety and well-being of citizens over the profits of the gun lobby. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. The future of American tourism, and indeed the future of America itself, hangs in the balance. It's time to start a national conversation, to demand change from our leaders, and to hold them accountable for creating a country that is both prosperous and just. Share this message. Raise your voice. Let's remind the world that America is not a lost cause, but a nation on the cusp of change. The journey back to greatness starts with a single step. Let's take that step together.